How many different animals are there?
Biologists have described and named more than 1 million species of animals. And some biologists believe that there are several million more species that remain to be discovered, classified, and named.
Which country is the largest supplier of oil to the United States?
Canada is the largest supplier of crude oil to the United States. In 2008, the United States imported 912,263,000 barrels of oil from Canada. The next largest single country supplier of crude oil to the United States was Saudi Arabia with 559,750,000 barrels of crude oil.
Why was Niagara Falls shut down for 30 hours in 1848?
The volume of Niagara waters depends on the height of Lake Erie at Buffalo, New York, a factor that varies with the direction and intensity of the wind. Changes of as much as 8 feet, 2.5 meters. In the level of Lake Erie at the Niagara River source have been recorded. On March 29, 1848, a gale drove the floating ice in Lake Erie to the lake outlet, quickly blocking that narrow channel and shutting off a large proportion of the river's flow. Eyewitness accounts stated that the American Falls were passable on foot, but for that day only.
What is the purpose of the International Space Station, ISS?
The International Space Station, ISS, orbits Earth at an altitude of about 250 miles, 400 kilometers. The ISS travels at 17,500 miles per hour, 32,410 kilometers per hour. In an orbit that extends from 52 degrees north latitude to 52 degrees south latitude. Its main purpose is to serve as a laboratory for materials, communications technology, and biological and medical research in an environment that lacks the force of gravity.
Who is generally regarded as the discoverer of the electron, the proton, and the neutron?
The British physicist Sir Joseph John Thomson. 1856 to 1940, in 1897 researched electrical conduction in gases, which led to the important discovery that cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles called electrons. The discovery of the electron inaugurated the electrical theory of the atom, and this, along with other work, entitled Thomson to be regarded as the founder of modern atomic physics. Ernest Rutherford discovered the proton in 1919. He also predicted the existence of the neutron. Later discovered by his colleague, James Chadwick, 1891 to 1974. Chadwick was awarded the 1935 Nobel Prize in Physics for this discovery.
Which countries have the highest reserves of natural gas?
Worldwide reserves of natural gas are estimated at 6,254 trillion cubic feet, with 41% of the total located in the Middle East and 32% of the total located in Europe and the former USSR.
What is the Red Queen hypothesis?
This hypothesis, also called the law of constant extinction, is named after the Red Queen in Lewis Carroll's 1832 to 1898 Through the Looking Glass, who said, "Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place." The idea is that an evolutionary advance by one species represents a deterioration of the environment for all remaining species. This places pressure on those species to advance just to keep up.
What are the two major groups of angiosperms and what are the major differences between the groups?
Angiosperms made up of the largest number of plant species, 240,000, are classified into two major groups, monocots and dicots. The description of monocots and dicots is based on the first leaves that appear on the plant embryo. Monocots have one seed leaf, while dicots have two seed leaves. There are approximately 65,000 species of monocots and 175,000 species of dicots. Orchids, bamboo, palms, lilies, grains, and many grasses are examples of monocots. Dicots include most trees that are non-coniferous, shrubs, ornamental plants, and many food crops.
What evidence has led scientists to believe land plants evolved from green algae?
Many scientists believe that ancient green algae evolved into land plants. The chloroplasts present in green algae are the same as those of land plants. In addition, green algae have cell walls of similar composition to land plants. Both store food, such as starch, in the same manner. Most green algae live in freshwater habitats with highly variable conditions. The ongoing changes in their environment have made them highly adaptable.
How were early macadam roads different from modern paved roads?
Macadam roads developed originally in England and France and are named after the Scottish road builder and engineer John Loudon MacAdam, 1756 to 1836. The term macadam originally designated road surface or base in which clean, broken, or crushed ledge stone was mechanically locked together by rolling with a heavy weight and bonded together by stone dust screenings that were worked into the spaces and then set with water. With the beginning of the use of bituminous material, tar or asphalt, the terms plain macadam, ordinary macadam, or water-bound macadam were used to distinguish the original type from the newer bituminous macadam. Water-bound macadam surfaces are almost never built now in the United States, mainly because they are expensive and the vacuum effect of vehicles loosens them. Many miles of bituminous macadam roads are still in service, but their principal disadvantages are their high crowns and narrowness. Today's roads that carry very heavy traffic are usually surfaced with very durable Portland cement.
What are the major senses?
As early as 300 BCE, the five senses were recognized to include smell, taste, sight, hearing, and touch. More recently, scientists categorize the senses into two major groups. One group is the special senses, which are produced by highly localized sensory organs and include the senses of smell, taste, sight, hearing, and balance. The other group is the general senses, which are more widely distributed throughout the body and include such senses as touch, pressure, pain, temperature, and vibration.
How many bees are in a bee colony?
On average, a bee colony contains from 50,000 to 70,000 bees, which produce a harvest of from 60 to 100 pounds, 27 to 45 kilograms, of honey per year. A little more than one-third of the honey produced by the bees is retained in the hive to sustain the population.
Who invented the compound microscope?
The principle of the compound microscope, in which two or more lenses are arranged to form an enlarged image of an object, occurred independently, at about the same time, to more than one person. Certainly many opticians were active in the construction of telescopes at the end of the 16th century, especially in Holland. So it is likely that the idea of the microscope may have occurred to several of them independently. In all probability the date may be placed within the period 1590 to 1609. And the credit should go to three spectacle makers in Holland: Hans Janssen, his son Zacharias, 1580 to 1638, and Hans Lippershey, 1570 to 1619, have all been cited at various times as deserving chief credit. An Englishman, Robert Hooke, was the first to make the best use of a compound microscope, and his book Micrographia, published in 1665, contains some of the most beautiful drawings of microscopic observations ever made.
What are X-rays?
X-rays are electromagnetic radiation with short wavelengths, 10 to 3 nanometers, and a great amount of energy. They were discovered in 1898 by William Conrad Röntgen, 1845 to 1923. X-rays are frequently used in medicine because they are able to pass through opaque, dense structures such as bone and form an image on a photographic plate. They are especially helpful in assessing damage to bones, identifying certain tumors, and examining the chest, heart and lungs and abdomen. A major disadvantage of X-rays as a diagnostic tool is that they provide little information about the soft tissues. Since they only show a flat, two-dimensional picture, they cannot distinguish between the various layers of an organ, some of which may be healthy while others may be diseased.
What is La Nina?
La Nina is the opposite of El Niño. It refers to a period of cold surface temperatures of the tropical Pacific Ocean. La Nina winters are especially harsh with heavy snowfall in the northeastern United States and rain in the Pacific Northwest.
How is underground coal mined?
There are two basic types of underground mining methods, room and pillar and longwall. In room and pillar mines, coal is removed by cutting rooms, or large tunnels. In the solid coal, leaving pillars of coal for roof support. Longwall mining takes successive slices over the entire length of a long working face. In the United States, about 2/3 of the coal recovered by underground mining is by room and pillar method. The other third is recovered by longwall mining. Coal seams in the United States range in thickness from a thin film to 50 feet, 15 meters, or more. The thickest coal beds are in the western states, ranging from 10 feet. 3 meters, in Utah and New Mexico to 50 feet, 15 meters, in Wyoming. Other places, such as Great Britain, use the longwall method.
How can pets be treated to remove skunk odor?
From a pet store, purchase one of the products specifically designed to counteract skunk odor. Most of these are of the enzyme or bacterial enzyme variety and can be used without washing the pet first. A dog may also be given a bath with tomato juice, diluted vinegar, or Neutrolium alpha, or you could try mint mouthwash, aftershave, or soap and water.
How many groups are identified in the domain bacteria?
Biologists recognize at least a dozen different groups of bacteria.
What are vitamins and minerals?
A vitamin is an organic, non-protein substance that is required by an organism for normal metabolic function but cannot be synthesized by that organism. In other words, vitamins are crucial molecules that must be acquired from outside sources. While most vitamins are present in food, vitamin D, for example, is produced as a precursor in our skin and converted to the active form by sunlight. Minerals, such as calcium and iron, are inorganic substances that also enhance cell metabolism. Vitamins may be fat or water soluble.
What is the difference between an invertebrate and a vertebrate?
Invertebrates are animals that lack a backbone. Almost all animals, 99%, are invertebrates. Of the more than 1 million identified animals, only 52,000 have a vertebral column. These are referred to as vertebrates. Most biologists believe the millions of species that have yet to be discovered are exclusively invertebrates.
Which medical condition is caused by the abnormal location of endometrial tissue?
Endometriosis is the abnormal location of uterine endometrial tissue. Under normal conditions, endometrial tissue only lines the uterus. But in some instances the tissue migrates to remote locations of the body such as the ovaries, pelvic peritoneum, the vagina, the bladder, or even the small intestine and lining of the chest cavity. Endometriosis is associated with dysmenorrhea, painful menstruation, pelvic pain, and infertility.
Is the moon really blue during a blue moon?
Although a bluish-looking moon can result from effects of Earth's atmosphere, the term blue moon does not refer to the color of the moon. For example, the phenomenon was widely observed in North America on September 26, 1950, due to Canadian forest fires that had scattered high-altitude dust, which refracted or absorbed certain wavelengths of light. The popular definition of a blue moon is the second full moon in a single calendar month. Based on this definition, a blue moon occurs, on average, every 2.72 years. Since 29.53 days pass between full moons, a synodial month, there is never a blue moon in February. On rare occasions, a blue moon can be seen twice in 1 year, but only in certain parts of the world. Blue moons will next occur August 31st, 2012 July 31st, 2015 January 31st, 2018 March 31st 2018 October 31st, 2020 August 31st, 2023 May 31st, 2026 December 31st, 2028 September 30th, 2031 July 31st, 2034 However, this is a new definition of a blue moon based on an article that appeared in Sky and Telescope in 1946. The older definition of a blue moon, found in the Maine Farmer's Almanac dating back to 1819, describes a blue moon as the third full moon in a season of 4 full moons. To further complicate the calculation of a blue moon, astronomers define the start of a season based on the actual position of the Sun throughout its annual orbit. The seasons will not be of equal length according to this definition. The Maine Farmer's Almanac preferred to define each season as being of equal length. Therefore, determining the occurrence of a blue moon based on the traditional definition will depend on whether the astronomical definition of a season or the Maine Farmer's Almanac definition is used.
How did the navel orange originate?
Navel oranges are oranges without seeds. In the early 19th century, an orange tree in a Brazilian orchard produced seedless fruit, although the rest of the trees in the orchard produced seeded oranges. This naturally occurring mutation gave rise to what we now refer to as the navel orange. A bud from the mutant tree was grafted onto another orange tree. Branches that resulted were then grafted onto other trees, soon creating orchards of navel orange trees.
How is blood pressure measured?
A sphygmomanometer is the device used to measure blood pressure. It was invented in 1881 by an Austrian named von Basch. It consists of a cuff with an inflatable bladder that is wrapped around the upper arm, a rubber bulb to inflate the bladder, and a device that indicates the pressure of blood. Measuring arterial tension, blood pressure, of a person's circulation is achieved when the cuff is applied to the arm over the artery and pumped to a pressure that occludes or blocks it. This gives the systolic measure, or the maximum pressure of the blood, which occurs during contraction of the ventricles of the heart. Air is then released from the cuff until the blood is first heard passing through the opening artery, called Korokov sounds. This gives diastolic pressure, or the minimum value of blood pressure that occurs during the relaxation of the arterial filling phase of the heart muscle.
What are Operation Ranch Hand and Agent Orange?
Operation Ranch Hand was the tactical military project for the aerial spraying of herbicides in South Vietnam during the Vietnam conflict, 1961 to 1975. In these operations, Agent Orange, the collective name for the herbicides 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, was used for defoliation. The name derives from the color-coded drums in which the herbicides were stored. In all, U.S. troops sprayed approximately 19 million gallons, 72 million liters, of herbicides over 4 million acres, 1.6 million hectare. Concerns about the health effects of Agent Orange were initially voiced in 1970. And since then the issue has been complicated by scientific and political debate. In 1993, a 16-member panel of experts reviewed the existing scientific evidence and found strong evidence of a statistical association between herbicides and soft tissue sarcoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, and chloracne. On the other hand, they concluded that no connection appeared to exist between exposure to Agent Orange and skin cancer, bladder cancer, brain tumors, or stomach cancer.
What is meant by xeriscaping?
A xeriscape, a landscape of low water use plants, is the modern approach to gardening in areas that experience water shortages.
Which tree species from the United States have lived the longest?
Of the 850 different species of trees in the United States, the oldest species is the bristlecone pine, Pinus longeva. This species grows in the deserts of Nevada and Southern California, particularly in the White Mountains. Some of these trees are believed to be over 4,600 years old. The potential lifespan of these pines is estimated to be 5,500 years. But potential age of the bristlecone pine is very young when compared to the oldest surviving species in the world, the maidenhair tree, Ginkgo biloba, of China. This species of tree first appeared during the Jurassic era, some 200 million years ago. Also called Iko, or the Ginkgo, meaning silver apricot. This species has been cultivated in Japan since 1100 BCE.
How hot is lightning?
The temperature of the air around a bolt of lightning is about 54,000 degrees Fahrenheit 30,000 degrees Celsius, which is 6 times hotter than the surface of the sun, yet many times people survive being struck by a bolt of lightning. American Park Ranger Roy Sullivan, 1912 to 1983, for example, was hit by lightning 7 times between 1942 and 1977. In cloud-to-ground lightning, its energy seeks the shortest route to Earth, which could be through a person's shoulder, down the side of the body, through the leg, and to the ground. As long as the lightning does not pass across the heart or spinal column, the victim usually does not die.
How does a cyclone differ from a hurricane or a tornado?
All three wind phenomena are rotating winds that spiral in toward a low-pressure center as well as upward. Their differences lie in their size, wind velocity, rate of travel, and duration. Generally, the faster the winds spin, the shorter, in time, and smaller, in size, the event becomes. A cyclone has rotating winds from 10 to 60 miles per hour, 16 to 97 kilometers per hour. Can be up to 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, in diameter. Travels about 25 miles per hour, 40 kilometers per hour, and lasts from 1 to several weeks. A hurricane, or typhoon, as it is called in the Pacific Ocean area, has winds that vary from 75 to 200 miles per hour, 120 to 320 kilometers per hour. Moves between 10 to 20 miles per hour, 16 to 32 kilometers per hour, can have a diameter up to 600 miles. 960 kilometers, and can exist from several days to more than a week. A tornado can reach a rotating speed of 300 miles per hour, 400 kilometers per hour. Travels between 25 to 40 miles per hour, 40 to 64 kilometers per hour. And generally lasts only minutes, although some have lasted for 5 to 6 hours. Its diameter can range from 300 yards, 274 meters, to 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers. And its average path length is 5 miles, 8 kilometers, with a maximum of 300 miles, 483 kilometers. Typhoons, hurricanes, and cyclones tend to breed in low-altitude belts over the oceans. Generally from 5 degrees to 15 degrees latitude north or south. A tornado generally forms several thousand feet above Earth's surface. Usually during warm, humid weather, many times it is in conjunction with a thunderstorm. Although a tornado can occur in many places, they mostly appear on the continental plains of North America, i.e., from the Plains states eastward to western New York and the southeastern Atlantic states.
How much radiation does the average dental X-ray emit?
Dental examinations are estimated to contribute 0.15 millirems per year to the average genetically significant dose. A small amount when compared to other medical X-rays. How does the U.S.
When did the first computer virus spread via the Internet?
The first known case of large-scale damage caused by a computer virus spread via the Internet was in 1988. Robert Morris, Jr. 1965, a graduate student at Cornell University, crafted a worm virus that infected thousands of computers, shutting down many of them and causing millions of dollars of damage.
How many feet are on each side of an acre that is square?
An acre that is square in shape has about 208.7 feet, 64 meters, on each side.
What was the typical lifespan of dinosaurs?
The lifespan has been estimated at 75 to 300 years. Such estimates are educated guesses. From examination of the microstructure of dinosaur bones, scientists have inferred that they matured slowly and probably had proportionately long lifespans.
Why did dinosaurs become extinct?
There are many theories as to why dinosaurs disappeared from Earth about 65 million years ago. Scientists debate whether dinosaurs became extinct gradually or all at once. The gradualists believe that the dinosaur population steadily declined at the end of Cretaceous period. Numerous reasons have been proposed for this. Some claim the dinosaurs' extinction was caused by biological changes that made them less competitive with other organisms, especially the mammals that were just beginning to appear. Overpopulation has been argued, as has the theory that mammals ate too many dinosaur eggs for the animals to reproduce themselves. Others believe that disease, everything from rickets to constipation, wiped them out. Changes in climate, continental drift, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in Earth's axis, orbit, and/or magnetic field have also been held responsible. The catastrophists argue that a single disastrous event caused the extinction not only of the dinosaurs but also of a large number of other species that coexisted with them. In 1980, American physicist Luis Alvarez, 1911 to 1988, and his geologist son, Walter Alvarez, 1940, proposed that a large comet or meteoroid struck Earth 65 million years ago. They pointed out that there is a high concentration of the element iridium in the sediments at the boundary between the Cretaceous and Tertiary periods. Iridium is rare on Earth, so the only source of such a large amount of it had to be outer space. This iridium anomaly has since been discovered at over 50 sites around the world. In 1990, tiny glass fragments, which could have been caused by the extreme heat of an impact, were identified in Haiti. A 110-mile, 177-kilometer, wide crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, long covered by sediments, has been dated to 64.98 million years ago, making it a leading candidate for the site of this impact. A hit by a large extraterrestrial object, perhaps as much as 6 miles. 9.3 kilometers, wide, would have had a catastrophic effect upon the world's climate. Huge amounts of dust and debris would have been thrown into the atmosphere, reducing the amount of sunlight reaching the surface. Heat from the blast may also have caused large forest fires, which would have added smoke and ash to the air. Lack of sunlight would kill off plants and have a domino-like effect on other organisms in the food chain, including the dinosaurs. It is possible that the reason for the dinosaurs' extinction may have been a combination of both theories. The dinosaurs may have been gradually declining, for whatever reason. The impact of a large object from space merely delivered the final devastating blow. The fact that dinosaurs became extinct has been cited as proof of their inferiority and that they were evolutionary failures. However, these animals flourished for 150 million years. By comparison, the earliest ancestors of humanity appeared only about 3 million years ago. Humans have a long way to go before they can claim the same sort of success as the dinosaurs.
What is technetium?
Technetium, Tc, element 43, is a radioactive metallic element that does not occur naturally either in its pure form or as compounds. It is produced during nuclear fission. A fission product of molybdenum, Mo, element 42. Tc can also occur as a fission product of uranium, U, element 92. It was the first element to be made artificially in 1937 when it was isolated and extracted by Carlo Perrier. 1886 to 1948, and Emilio Segre, 1905 to 1989. Technetium has found significant application in diagnostic imaging and nuclear medicine. Ingested soluble technetium compounds tend to concentrate in the liver and are valuable in labeling and in radiological examination of that organ. Also, by technetium labeling of blood serum components. Diseases involving the circulatory system can be explored.
What are the components of a gene?
The term gene describes a section of DNA that will be used as a template to build a strand of RNA or protein. In addition to this information, each gene also contains a promoter region, which indicates where the coding information actually begins, and a terminator, which delineates the end of the gene.
What are the characteristics of the protists?
Protists are a diverse group of organisms. All protists are eukaryotic. Many are unicellular, but they may be multicellular, multinucleate, or exhibit a colonial organization. Although most are microscopic, some are much larger, reaching lengths of nearly 200 feet, 60 meters. In early, traditional taxonomic schemes, they were united on the basis of being neither plant nor animal nor fungus. Current evidence suggests that protists exhibit characteristics of the plant, animal, and fungi kingdoms.
Which chemical elements are the most abundant on Earth?
Oxygen, O, element 8, is the most abundant element in Earth's crust, waters, and atmosphere. It comprises 49.5% of the total mass of these compounds. Silicon, Si, element 14, is the second most abundant element. Silicon dioxide and silicates make up about 87% of the materials in Earth's crust.
How are genes controlled?
Genes are controlled by regulatory mechanisms that vary by whether the organism is a prokaryote or a eukaryote. Bacteria, prokaryote, genes can be regulated by DNA-binding proteins that influence the rate of transcription, or by global regulatory mechanisms that refer to an organism's response to specific environmental stimuli such as heat shock. This is particularly important in bacteria. Gene control in eukaryotes depends on a complex set of regulatory elements that turn genes off and on at specific times. Among these regulatory elements are DNA-binding proteins as well as proteins that, in turn, control the activity of the DNA-binding proteins.
How strong is bone?
Bone is one of the strongest materials found in nature. It is a rigid connective tissue that has a matrix of collagen fibers embedded in calcium salts. Most of the skeletal system is composed of bone, which provides support for muscle attachment and protects the internal organs. 1 cubic inch of bone can withstand loads of at least 19,000 pounds, 8,626 kilograms, which is approximately the weight of 5 standard-size pickup trucks. This is roughly 4 times the strength of concrete. Bone's resistance to load is equal to that of aluminum and light steel. Ounce for ounce, bone is actually stronger than steel and reinforced concrete. Since steel bars of comparable size would weigh 4 or 5 times as much as bone.
Why is radon a health hazard?
Radon is a colorless, odorless, tasteless, radioactive gaseous element produced by the decay of radium. It has 3 naturally occurring isotopes found in many natural materials, such as soil, rocks, well water, and building materials. Because the gas is continually released into the air, it makes up the largest source of radiation that humans receive. A National Academy of Sciences, NAS, report noted that radon was the second leading cause of lung cancer. It has been estimated that it may cause as much as 12%, or about 15,000 to 22,000 cases, of lung cancer deaths annually. Smokers seem to be at a higher risk than non-smokers. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, recommends that in radon testing the level should not be more than 4 picocuries per liter. The estimated national average is 1.5 picocuries per liter. Because EPA's safe level is equivalent to 200 chest X-rays per year. Some experts believe that lower levels are appropriate. The American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, OSHRE, recommends 2 picocuries/liter. The EPA estimates that nationally 1 in 15, or 6%, of all homes have radon levels that are above the 4 picocuries/liter limit. This is down from a 1987 survey that estimated 21% of homes were above this level.
What color is an iceberg?
Most icebergs are blue and white. However, 1 in 1,000 icebergs in Antarctica is emerald green. They are only found in Antarctica because the northern hemisphere is not cold enough. These icebergs form when sea water freezes to the bottom of floating ice shelves. The ice looks green from the combination of yellow and blue. Yellow is from the yellowish-brown remains of dead plankton dissolved in seawater and trapped in the ice. Blue is present because although ice reflects virtually all the wavelengths of visible light, it absorbs slightly more red wavelengths than blue.
What is the most dangerous poison produced by a plant?
In North America, the poisonous hemlock, Conium maculatum, is probably the most dangerous plant. The South American lana tree is another dangerous plant. Native Americans used its sap to make curare, a poisonous substance applied to their arrows and spears. It can cause death in a matter of minutes.
What are the functions of the muscular system?
Muscles are identified as being voluntary muscles or involuntary muscles. The skeletal muscles are called voluntary muscles because the person controls their use. They are used to move the various parts of the body. Smooth muscles, found in the stomach and intestinal walls, vein and artery walls, and in various internal organs, are called involuntary muscles, because they are not generally controlled by the person. The cardiac muscles, or the heart muscles, are also involuntary muscles.
In what ways are gymnosperms economically important?
Gymnosperms account for approximately 75% of the world's timber and a large amount of the wood pulp used to make paper. In North America, the white spruce, Picea glauca, is the main source of pulpwood used for newsprint and other paper. Other spruce wood is used to manufacture violins and similar string instruments because the wood produces a desired resonance. The Douglas fir, Pseudotsuga menziesii, provides more timber than any other North American tree species and produces some of the most desirable lumber in the world. The wood is strong and relatively free of knots. Uses for the wood include house framing, plywood production, structural beams, pulpwood, railroad ties, boxes, and crates. Since most naturally occurring areas of growth have been harvested, the Douglas fir is being grown in managed forests. The wood from the redwood Sequoia sempervirens is used for furniture, fences, posts, some construction, and has various garden uses. In addition to the wood and paper industry, gymnosperms are important in making resin and turpentine. Resin, the sticky substance in the resin canals of conifers, is a combination of turpentine, a solvent, and a waxy substance called rosin. Turpentine is an excellent paint and varnish solvent but is also used to make deodorants, shaving lotions, medications, and limonene lemon flavoring used in the food industry. Resin has many uses. It is used by baseball pitchers to improve their grip on the ball and by batters to improve their grip on the bat. Violinists apply resin to their bows to increase friction with the strings. Dancers apply resin to their shoes to improve their grip on the stage.
How does the sense of smell work?
The sense of smell is associated with sensory receptor cells in the upper nasal cavity. The smell, or olfactory, receptors are chemoreceptors. Chemicals that stimulate olfactory receptors enter the nasal cavity as airborne molecules called gases. They must dissolve in the watery fluids that surround the cilia of the olfactory receptor cells before they can be detected. These specialized cells, the olfactory receptor neurons, are the only parts of the nervous system that are in direct contact with the outside environment. The odorous gases then waft up to the olfactory cells, where the chemicals bind to the cilia that line the nasal cavity. That action initiates a nerve impulse being sent through the olfactory cell into the olfactory nerve fiber, to the olfactory bulb, and to the brain. The brain then knows what the chemical odors are.
What is the only four-horned animal in the world?
The four-horned antelope, Tetracerus quadricornis, is a native of central India. The males have two short horns, usually 4 inches, 10 centimeters, in length, between their ears. and an even shorter pair, 1 to 2 inches, 2.5 to 5 centimeters, long, between the brow ridges over their eyes. Not all males have 4 horns. And in some the second pair eventually falls off. The females have no horns at all.
How is silk made?
Silk fiber is a continuous protein filament produced by a silkworm to form its cocoon. The principal species used in commercial silk making is the mulberry silkworm. The larva of the silk moth Bombyx mori, belonging to the order Lepidoptera. The raw silk fiber has 3 elements, 2 filaments excreted from both of the silkworms. Glands and a soluble silk gum called sericin, which cements the filaments together. It is from these filaments that the caterpillar constructs a cocoon around itself. The process of silk making starts with raising silkworms on diets of mulberry leaves for 5 weeks until they spin their cocoons. Then the cocoons are treated with heat to kill the silkworms inside. Otherwise, when the moths emerged, they would break the long silk filaments. After the cocoons are soaked in hot water, the filaments of 5 to 10 cocoons are unwound in the reeling process and twisted into a single thicker filament, still too fine for weaving. These twisted filaments are twisted again into a thread that can be woven.
How did the Linux operating system get its name?
The name Linux is a combination of the first name of its principal programmer, Finland's Linus Torvalds, 1970, and the Unix operating system. Linux, pronounced with a short I, is an open-source computer operating system that is comparable to more powerful, expansive, and usually more costly Unix systems, of which it resembles in form and function. Linux allows users to run an amalgam of reliable and hardy open-source software tools and interfaces, including powerful web utilities such as the popular Apache server, on their home computers. Anyone can download Linux for free or can obtain it on disk for only a marginal fee. Torvalds created the kernel or heart of the system just for fun, and released it freely to the world, where other programmers helped further its development. The world, in turn, has embraced Linux and made Torvalds into a computer folk hero.
How salty is seawater?
Seawater is, on average, 3.3 to 3.7% salt. The amount of salt varies from place to place. In areas where large quantities of fresh water are supplied by melting ice, rivers, or rainfall, such as the Arctic or Antarctic, the level of salinity is lower. Areas such as the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea have salt contents over 4.2%. If all the salt in the ocean were dried, it would form a mass of solid salt the size of Africa. Most of the ocean salt comes from processes of dissolving and leaking from the solid earth over hundreds of millions of years. Some is the result of salty volcanic rock that flows up from a giant rift that runs through all the ocean's basins.
What is bioinformatics?
Bioinformatics is the field of science in which biology, computer science, and information technology merge into a single discipline. The ultimate goal of the field is to enable the discovery of new biological insights as well as to create a global perspective from which unifying principles in biology can be discerned. There are three important subdisciplines within bioinformatics. 1. The development of new algorithms and statistics with which to assess relationships among members of the large data sets. 2. The analysis and interpretation of various types of data including nucleotide and amino acid sequences, protein domains, and protein structures, and 3. The development and implementation of tools that enable efficient access and management of different types of information.
How long did it take to prove the four-color map theorem?
The four-color map problem was first posed by Francis Guthrie, 1831 to 1899, in 1852. 3. While coloring a map of the English counties, Guthrie discovered he could do it with only 4 colors and no two adjacent counties would be the same color. He extrapolated the question to whether every map, no matter how complicated and how many countries are on the map, could be colored using only 4 colors with no two adjacent countries being the same color. The theorem was not proved until 1976, 124 years after the question had been raised. By Kenneth Appel, 1932, and Wolfgang Haken, 1928. Their proof is considered correct although it relies on computers for the calculations. There is no known simple way to check the proof by hand.
How sensitive is the hearing of birds?
In most species of birds, the most important sense after sight is hearing. Birds' ears are close to their bodies and are covered by feathers. The feathers, however, do not have barbules, which would obstruct sound. Nocturnal raptors, such as the great horned owl, have a very well-developed sense of hearing in order to be able to capture their prey in total darkness.
What is the funny bone?
The funny bone is not a bone but part of the ulnar nerve located at the back of the elbow. A bump in this area can cause a tingling sensation or produce a temporary numbness and paralysis of muscles on the forearm.
When and where will the next 10 total solar eclipses occur?
The next total solar eclipse in the United States, August 21, 2017, will sweep a path 70 miles. 113 kilometers, wide from Salem, Oregon, to Charleston, South Carolina.
What are the most common tapeworm infections in humans?
Tapeworms, members of the class Cestida, have long, flat bodies in which there is a linear series of sets of reproductive organs. Each set or segment is called a proglottid.
When was the Nobel Prize first awarded?
The Nobel Prize was established by Alfred Nobel, 1833 to 1896. To recognize individuals whose achievements during the preceding year had conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. 5 prizes were to be conferred each year in the areas of physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, economic sciences, and peace. Although Nobel passed away in 1896, the first prizes were not awarded until 1901.
What is the difference between a National Weather Service statement, advisory, watch, and warning?
The National Weather Service will issue a statement as a first alert of the possibility of severe weather. An advisory is issued when weather conditions are not life-threatening. But individuals need to be alert to weather conditions. A weather watch is issued when conditions are more favorable than usual for dangerous weather conditions, e.g., tornadoes and violent thunderstorms. A watch is a recommendation for planning, preparation, and increased awareness, i.e., to be alert for changing weather. Listen for further information, and think about what to do if the danger materializes. A warning is issued when a particular weather hazard is either imminent or has been reported. A warning indicates the need to take action to protect life and property. The type of hazard is reflected in the type of warning, e.g., tornado warning, blizzard warning.
When was the first practical greenhouse built?
French botanist Jules Charles constructed one in 1599 in Leiden, Holland, which housed tropical plants grown for medicinal purposes. The most popular plant there was an Indian date called the tamarind, whose fruit was made into a curative drink.
Which insect has the best sense of smell?
Giant male silk moths may have the best sense of smell in the world. They can smell a female's perfume nearly 7 miles, 11 kilometers, away.
How long does female reproductive cycle last?
The reproductive cycle averages 28 days, but it may last from 24 to 35 days. A cycle of 20 to 45 days is still considered within the range of normalcy. The menstrual phase lasts 5 to 7 days. The preovulatory phase lasts 8 to 11 days, and the postovulatory phase lasts an average of 14 days.
What is carbon black?
Carbon black is finely divided carbon produced by incomplete combustion of methane or other hydrocarbon gases. By letting the flame impinge on a cool surface. This forms a very fine pigment containing up to 95% carbon, which gives a very intense black color that is widely used in paints, inks, and protective coatings, and as a colorant for paper and plastics. It is also used in large amounts by the tire industry in the production of vulcanized rubber.
What is the carbon cycle?
To survive, every organism must have access to carbon atoms. Carbon makes up about 49% of the dry weight of organisms. The carbon cycle includes movement of carbon from the gaseous phase. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, to solid phase. Carbon-containing compounds in living organisms, and then back to the atmosphere via decomposers. The atmosphere is the largest reservoir of carbon, containing 32% CO2. Biological processes on land shuttle carbon between atmospheric and terrestrial compartments. With photosynthesis removing CO2 from the atmosphere and cell respiration returning CO2 to the atmosphere.
Does the moon have an atmosphere?
The moon does have an atmosphere, however it is very slight. Having a density of about 50 atoms per cubic centimeter. Recently, scientists have discovered frozen water on the moon.
What is the greenhouse effect?
The greenhouse effect is a warming near Earth's surface that results when Earth's atmosphere traps the sun's heat. The atmosphere acts much like the glass walls and roof of a greenhouse. The effect was described by John Tyndall, 1820 to 1893, in 1861. It was given the greenhouse analogy much later in 1896 by the Swedish chemist Svante Arrhenius, 1859 to 1927. The greenhouse effect is what makes the Earth habitable. without the presence of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and other gases in the atmosphere. Too much heat would escape and the Earth would be too cold to sustain life. Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases absorb the infrared radiation, rising from the Earth, and hold this heat in the atmosphere instead of reflecting it back into space. In the 20th century, the increased buildup of carbon dioxide, caused by the burning of fossil fuels, has been a matter of concern. There is some controversy concerning whether the increase noted in the Earth's average temperature is due to the increased amount of carbon dioxide and other gases, or is due to other causes. Volcanic activity, destruction of the rainforests, use of aerosols, and increased agricultural activity may also be contributing factors.
From what plant is Taxol extracted?
Taxol is produced from the bark of the western or Pacific yew, Taxus brevifolia. It has been shown to inhibit the growth of HeLa cells, human cancer cells, and is a promising new treatment for several kinds of cancer. Originally it was a scarce drug, but in 1994 two groups of researchers announced its synthesis. The synthesis is a formidable challenge, and better procedures and modifications remain to be developed. Since Taxol is developed now from needles instead of tree bark, the natural source is more available, but the synthetic version will be needed to devise modified or designer Taxols whose cancer-fighting ability may prove more effective.